Welcome to the BAM podcast. That's right, BAM, business and money instead of bitching and moaning. This is the 2.0 version of the top 3 podcast, True Underdog. This will give you an inside look at building a business, overcoming business and personal issues, and most of all, not bitching and buying into this bitch-ass cancel culture lifestyle. I'm tired of it. I'm sure you're tired of it. Take it from me, who I built 3 companies and have done over $1 billion in sales in my time. You're going to hear from cool-ass guests as well on my show. You have 0 time to bitch, time to make your move. Let's fucking go. Bam! We agreed as executives, we're going to go off payroll until we're hiring again. And it was a tough pill to swallow. But that's what leaders do. Leaders give back to their company. Leaders don't, leaders invest everything they have. And that's what we did. And my wife said it best to me the other day. It hurts my feelings. But she's right. She said, it's sad, Jayson, because you thought till the last hour you were going to win.
You're listening to the Deal Closers podcast, brought to you by websiteclosers.com, a show about how to build your e-commerce business to be profitable, scalable, and one day even sellable. I'm Izach Porter, and on the show today, we talk to someone who has built multiple businesses, including one that was valued at over $1 billion. On his Business and Money podcast, he's interviewed Kevin O'Leary, Barry Sanders, Grant Cardone, hundreds of others on his way to being one of the top entrepreneurial podcasts in the world. His rags to riches story is legendary, and I'm so excited to have him on the show today. Jayson Waller, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on, man. Really excited to talk with you and hear about your story.
Hey, I'm excited to be on, Izach. Appreciate it. Good intro too, by the way. Good intro.
Nice. Yeah, thanks. So look, just as a preface, we've known each other for a long time. I first met you at POWERHOME Solar in maybe 2016, somewhere around there. I was in banking. We were working on some banking stuff back then. And, first day I met you, I thought, man, this guy's got energy. I felt your passion for the business that you were building. And I knew I wanted to be, to work with you going forward. And so we did end up doing quite a bit of work in banking. Interestingly, you're the predecessor to Business and Money podcast, True Underdog.
Yep.
I started listening to when you came out with True Underdog, and that show really was a catalyst for me to change my life in a lot of ways. I ended up getting out of banking, starting up my own company, getting into this e-commerce business brokerage space, and it's been a great move. And your message was basically one of have confidence in yourself and don't be afraid to take a risk and bet on yourself. And so, I wanted to say publicly, thank you for that. Happy to answer any questions that come up about that, but I really want to focus on your story.
Well, hey, no, thank you for saying that. You told me that before, and it always feels good when you feel like you can impact somebody, and we've known each other, and we're acquaintances and friends, but it feels good. It's flattering in a good way, saying, hey, you know what, at least I'm putting something out there that helps people, right? Because I have to listen to things to get me motivated and get inspired. And it's all about taking risk. It's all about taking that chance or taking that leap of faith, or like you said, believing in yourself and having confidence. Hell yeah. And I think that's key. It's hard to leave corporate America to do your own thing. And that's what you did. So it's cool. Thank you for
it was very hard. I mean, I was nervous about it, but I obviously I had to come from me wanting to do it, but I felt like that your message was like a catalyst that kind of got me on that path and really started thinking through the options. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And it's been a really good situation for me. So look, I want to get into the POWERHOME story. But I want to start with a question about kind of the peak of that story. So you grew this company up from zero, started it, and last year got a $1 billion valuation on the business.
Yeah.
How did that feel at that time? And then I guess the follow-up question is, we talk with a lot of entrepreneurs who are thinking about selling their business. How did you at that point make the decision not to go through with that sale?
Nope. Great questions. I think, as the business was growing, it was growing faster than we could accept, meaning like it was surreal, right?
Yeah.
And it was drinking from a fire hydrant, trying to learn everything, getting all the coaching I can, trying to level up and grow with the business. And during that time, you're super excited, super stressed too, right? Like, are other people able to drink from the same fire hydrant? Can they keep up? Are you outgrowing certain leaders? Do you need to find other people, bring them in? Because you don't know what you don't know. You're dipping your toe in it. And it started with, we were looking to do a recap again in 2020, and COVID hit. And then Generac approached us and was like, hey, we're the new thing in batteries, and you guys are so awesome at marketing, and you've done all this solar for NFL teams, and you're like the highest rated and, A+ with the BBB company out there. We want to partner with you guys and all this stuff. And so we were like, batteries, and Generac's got a big name. We could co-brand with them. This would be cool. So we did that in 2020, and that we really grew then because more people were home. We doubled down on TV where people could see how solar works, talk about battery technology, talk about having power, when the power's out, having some kind of power in their home. And that was a time where the world was kind of like paused and scared. But so I was in the right industry at the right time. And we really grew. We grew, COVID started. We were a little nervous what would happen if we were essential service or not. And we started COVID with about 800 employees. We finished that year with about 1,500 employees, and we doubled in size, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't double in size based on territory or customers. It was really doubled in size based on revenue and top line gross revenue and bottom line revenue, because we were offering batteries. So same amount of customers, but now we had battery packages for everybody, which people wanted batteries. They still do.
For sure.
And so
your average order value grew basically over
it did. Yeah. It went up about 40 or 50%, adding a battery to the ticket, showing customers that solar's not about saving money. You're reducing some of your electric bill, but it's really about doing right by the environment, providing essential service for yourself without the power being out, having to buy propane tanks or hooked up to natural gas with generators. Like it's the future. And so people were what we call future-proofing their home, right? They're putting battery technology in there to not pay higher rates on time of use when they charge their car, or to be able to combat when the power goes off. So that's really what the model was, and it grew, and we were excited about it. And as 2020 was wrapping up, we hired a company called Piper Jaffray, which is a broker.
Yep.
And they were like, look, forget the recap thing. There's private equity. Solar's it. You guys are growing. You guys have this, highly touted, rated, customer satisfaction business that's out there. And even the NFL works with you. Major League Baseball works with you. We're winning awards like crazy.
Tons of awards, right?
The company had over
awards. You got like a list of awards you've won over the last few years.
Yeah. So it's crazy. And, you're flattered by it, you're excited by it, and it makes you feel good, but then it just becomes the norm. I think we won like over 40 Stevie Awards and 25 other business awards, and our executive team won several awards. I won the EY Entrepreneur of the Year award. Like, all these awards were stacking up. So I felt like we were like the Avengers. In fact, our holiday party was an Avengers holiday party. Like, all the executives were the Avengers, and we're here to save the planet and go solar. And the employees were all excited, and we're giving out money to the employees on the holiday parties and changing lives. And it was just.
Yeah, I was at one of your holiday parties. It was great, dude. It was not the Avengers party. It was like the mariachi Mexican theme party, I think. But
and Barry Sanders was at that one.
Barry Sanders was there. Yeah, it was an awesome party. I mean, those were epic party.
It's all about giving back to your employees, because you're nothing without your employees, and you got to build the right people, and they've got to be rowing the same way. But Piper Jaffray came in and said, look, we've got some private equity that would be involved. So we pretty much went to market the end of 2020, and from the end of 2020 till August of 2022, I probably did north of 200 presentations to private and public companies, north of 200. And we had 54 companies or letters of interest or offers over that time. And they
Incredible,
started
man.
coming in.
That's huge.
Oh, it was massive. And when you first get one, whoa, like we're 400 million. Oh, the company's worth 600 million. Just so the listeners know, that doesn't mean we sell and we cash out 400 or 600 million, because that's always the perception of people. What it means is that's the value of the company, and somebody infuses some cash, they get some equity, and they help you grow as well. But a lot of people think that, oh, that means the owners are going to get rich and leave. No, not the case at all. But that's what the company was valued at. We were getting
Matter of
offers.
fact, I think most of those offers, they would not have let you leave.
That's correct. They want you to stay. You're
you in there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They lock you in, and that's okay. I didn't want to go. None of us wanted to go anywhere, but we wanted the capital to be able to grow, maybe take some chips off the table, do some great things, give back to our employees. We had this whole thing. We were going to give all these crazy bonuses, but then the private offers kept coming. And all of the sudden during this time, we talked to public companies too. I'm talking the Sunruns, the other solar companies out there, and just other public companies out there reaching out, doing presentations for. And then we get an offer from a company that has 3 SPACs, one already de-SPACed, and then they had a second one that they were trying to take as a SPAC. And this is during summer of 2021.
Okay.
And we're like
peak SPAC time.
Huh? Yeah, peak SPAC time. It was everybody was going SPAC. That was like the way to go. It was hot item. Like people were talking about it. Mad Money was up there. Oh my gosh, this next SPAC is great. That was the jive right there. That was the jam. And so the SPAC came in, we were floating around $500-$600 private equity. We were still keeping majority. So we weren't leaving. We weren't getting rich and bouncing, but we were keeping a lot of money in the business, and we were buying out our other minority partner. We have a 25% minority partner who was going to get bought out, which was an investment fund. And we were going to, bring somebody else on and have some more cash to really capitalize, look at microgrids, look at community solar, look at, low cost housing opportunities for solar, maybe some in-house financing. We had all these ideas. This SPAC company comes in and gives us $1.05 billion offer. We're like, what? They bring Citibank in. We signed. We're like, now it's like go public. And I'm like, okay, hold on. I didn't even envision going public, right? I mean, you have these goals as an entrepreneur, like, oh, that'd be great to go ring the bell. But to me, that's a dream goal. I try to live in the moment, the 30, the 60, the 90, the 180 day moment. What's next? What's next? What's next? I don't try to live too far up, because then I get discouraged, just like anybody else would. Yeah. And so it's like ring the bell, like we can go public. So now it's a whole different conversation. And we're all like, is this legit? Like, how do we do this? So that's immediately we brought on a new chief legal officer. During all this transaction time, you're going through audits. We're trying to get audited financials. You're doing all these things to prepare for a transaction, anyways, public or private.
Yeah.
So the executives are like, this. We're all in. Like we're putting 80 hours in a week. Like it's chaos, and running the company and growing the company. So. Yeah. Fast forward a little bit, we take their letter of intent. I remember sitting in Myrtle Beach at one of our directors events where we were doing training. We took sales and installations and customer service and took the leadership down to Myrtle Beach, and we ran a Hilton, and we do a lot of training and co-op building pack where we put the teams together and they can really do some team building activities. And it's like a 3-day event. And it's fun. We're there. We have guest speakers that do motivational speaking. And it's exciting. And I remember getting the call from this company, and, we're all sitting around the table like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So my heart's bumping. It's like, is this real? And I'm the type that's like, I'm very positive and very optimistic, but nothing's real till it's real, right? Like you don't sell a deal till a deal is signed. Like it's just hearsay. Okay. If you're, I've been married a long time, and, you've been married, but for single people out there, I'm trying to remember what it's like. It's like they say you can call them, but let's see if they answer the phone and they're actually going to go out with you. It's that kind of feeling, like right. They're just teasing. So you just want to make sure, but it was legit. And we had the offer, and we're going through due diligence. And as we're going through the due diligence, we're negotiating the board, and we're doing all these things, and we're growing our company. And we're like, I'm starting to take classes and coaching to better myself. I'm getting coached to be a public CEO. I'm doing things that, step up, because I was a little nervous. Like, can I be a public CEO? Like, I built these companies. I'm a little raw. I'm a little real. I dropped the F-bomb here and there. But I'm like, well, fuck it. Elon Musk isn't perfect. And Jeff, like, I could do this. Like, I could do this. Let's go. So going through the process, and then all of a sudden you start to see SPACs take a bath.
Yeah.
Like they're taking a bath. And and the company starts changing some of their negotiation, not wanting to give us board control, things like this. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. And we're raising money for a pipe raise to do this as well. And we have Generac giving us like, $50 million in the pipe raise and partnering with us and all of this. And we're raising, hitting investors to hit this pipe raise in order to do the SPAC. And they had money on the balance sheet on this SPAC, and they didn't have a business yet. So we get closer to Christmas and I'm like, I don't feel good about it. And we talk about it over the holidays. And as we get into the new year, we're supposed to close probably in March. They were still doing through due diligence. We have a conversation with that company and we go, look, you guys keep changing some of the things. SPACs are taking a bath. We don't want to go SPAC. And then that would just be bad news. So January, February timeframe, we basically said, we're not going to do this deal. We'll go back to the marketplace. At the time, we're still growing. Things are going okay. We're starting to see a spike in service issues. And we're like, what's going on? And all this is happening at the same time. We're like, why did we go from 800 phone calls in February timeframe to 30,000 phone calls in March? We're like, what the hell's going on? All of a sudden, bad press is coming out. Like we've done something wrong. And I'm like scratching my head like, man, we've got an A+ with the BBB. We've got all of these things in place to make sure, integrity driven compliance, sign off by attorneys, sign off by compliance training, FTC sign, like you name it. We have all these things in place. We're getting ready to be a public company. We've been working on this for over a year.
Yeah.
What is going on here? Let us investigate further of where these complaints are coming from and what's going on with these, salespeople doing things. So we saw this bad review in March, a news article that came out in Detroit where they had about 20 or 25 complaints to the news station about their solar system not producing what it was supposed to. Now, the way solar works is you have to accommodate shading. You have to accommodate where your roof faces. You have to do all of that. Well, we use the best software in the industry called Aurora, which is bar none. It under promises and over delivers. So our customers, when their system works, they actually produce more than what they're anticipating in most cases, which is great. And then, it also allocates for any kind of shading. It has the LiDAR that show the time of the year. Like, we have the best of the best. So we're scratching our head like, how the hell is this happening, right? Our sales reps don't have access to change pricing or change azimuth or any of that stuff. We take it out of their hands. We're very compliant. So we're struggling to figure this out. And they set up like this thing and they have a handful of reps out there that
this just started like almost overnight, right? We went from
normal
to tidal wave.
Yes. And while this is going on, the company that had the SPAC goes, listen, we still want to do a deal with you guys. And the company that had the SPAC looked at us and they ended up doing a deal for ADT Solar with SunPro, which was a competitor of ours and had half of our old management team, right? They had a handful of our people over there. We were a bigger, better company than them, right? ADT probably should have looked at us, but ADT couldn't afford us at the time. And so they were familiar with it and they were like, look, you guys are the same business as them, but better. You have more battery attachment. You don't have subcontract salespeople, all of these things that make us better. And so they said, look, you don't want to do the SPAC? Fine. We already have a company. Company is called XL Fleet. And they do something between going from traditional gas cars to an in-between software technology thing that you insert into the car to make it a hybrid. So it's in between electric and gas.
Really?
And
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so they had this company that had like 300, give or take 300 million on the balance sheet and was only making only doing 8 million in sales a year.
Yeah.
It was a very small company. And so that team, MGG was like, look, we still want to do something with you guys. We have this XL Fleet deal. And I'm like, I don't believe in that technology. I believe in electrical cars. I don't believe in the hybrid. I think you're wasting your time. And he goes, well, we're struggling with sales here. So let's talk about this. So we talked about it. while we're trying to figure out what the hell's going on, like, why are we getting all these calls and complaints? And we're talking to them, we're transparent with them, telling what's going on. They're asking us, what the hell is this? We're like, we don't know. So with their advice and conversating with them, we go and get an AM100 investigation done. An AM100 investigation, which is a third-party law firm, which we hired a law firm. That's all they do is investigate sales practices, marketing practices, integrity, things like that, compliance out there for companies. We hire them third-party independent, Kramer and Levin. And
this is basically an audit for your ethics.
Yes, an audit for our ethics to make sure we're not missing something. Like, is there something missing? We have all these parameters in here, and we have 7+ years of almost not perfect. We always have some customer service issues. You always have some sales. You always have some issues when you're running a company. The bigger you are, the more issues you have. It should stay around the same percentage, being very low, but you're going to have these issues. And we were always able to manage those. We were always able to fix any issues that we've created. We were always able to satisfy the customer. That's why we kept an A+ with the BBB in every location for 7 years. And that's why we had a 4.5 on Google with thousands of reviews, and Facebook. And that's why we had all that. Now, all of a sudden, there's a lot of steam of hate, complaints. This news article where they set up sales reps, and sales reps went in and said, well, all of Ford Field is got solar. And that's not true. It's part of Ford Field. But is that really an issue to put on the news? The guy said all of Ford Field compared to parts of Ford Field. Like, that I feel like the media was grasping for a great story because they had a lot of complaints and they were pissed. So they were trying to pick and choose what they could do. That guy in Fox in Detroit. And so,
and you had solar at stadiums all over the country.
We had solar at 5 NFL stadiums, 1 baseball stadium, and NC State.
Right.
And so while this is going on and we're negotiating with XL Fleet / MGG, the M100 comes back and says flying colors, and we're scratching our head. The calls are continuing to increase. The failing systems are continuing to increase. We have hold times now of 5.5 hours. Now think of this. We have north of 30,000 customers going into 2022. We're taking 800 phone calls or so a month. We're doing about 500 or 600 service tickets a month. We have 15 service teams. We have 80 install teams. An install team is somebody that goes and installs new product, right? Yeah. New installation. A service team is somebody service it. Because we didn't have a ton of service, we only had like 15 service teams. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, because your systems were all new. So
and not only all new, I mean, we've installed them since 15, but our biggest growth was fairly new. And the way the system usually works is after you pass the specs, you get it working. Like, it doesn't have a lot of issues after that. We've done our job. We put it in, we passed inspection, we're done. Anything that fails after that's usually a manufacturer issue, but we still offer a workmanship warranty. We've offered it for 5 years and recently switched when we did Pink Energy to 10. During this time, let me rewind. So we're sitting at March, April 2022. In October of last year, 2021, when we were talking to the SPAC, we talked about changing our name. The conversation was, look, power, home, and solar limits us. Let's come up with something creative, sexy, appealing, warm, inviting that covers everything.
These guys were thinking about hybrid and electric automobile technology. Right. They're thinking about more than just a home, right? They want a full energy brand.
So we came up with Pink Energy, right? Yeah. It was like, let's do it. So we had that scheduled to go out in April anyways of 2022. We're going to do a whole rebrand. We were supposed to announce we were going public, but then we changed the deal and ended up going with the same guys, but different company, if that makes sense. The same brokers, but the different company. And we were the XL Fleet was going to do a reverse merger with us. We were going to have majority of the board, and we were supposed to close the deal sometime in June or July. Well, they give us an offer in April for $1.05 billion to do basically the same deal. While all this is going on, they saw the M100 compliance. They know we're good folks. They know we're good people. They're trying to figure out what's going on. We hire data engineers to go in and start looking at why are we getting these calls? What's going on? And finally, our installers are like bringing back all of these parts right here. This is called a Snap RS 801. Okay. Yep. So every solar system, Izach, if you've got 24 panels, on the back of those panels, you have one of these. So now you have 24 of these.
Basically like a circuit breaker that connects every panel.
It's like an ignition switch to turn your panel on, to send it down the wiring down to your inverter, right? To convert it from DC to AC.
Gotcha.
The problem is media most of the media, and a lot of consumers, they don't understand. They think if we say Generac, we're talking batteries. No, 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 no. We use Generac for our inverters. We use Generac for the ignition switch, this RS snap, and we use Generac for the batteries. So
Generac, one of the biggest kind of solar panel accessory businesses out there, right?
Yeah. So they were the largest or one of the largest generator companies out there. And they bought a company in 2019 called Pika Energy. And then they approached us in early 2020, flashing, hey, you can use the Generac name. We can partner. Let's do this. We want to offer batteries. We have the best technology in the world, blah, blah, blah. Right. We believed them.
So they got into solar through their acquisition of Pika.
That's correct. Okay. That's correct. And I didn't know much about Pika, but I trusted Generac. It's a publicly traded company, good leadership, like number one in generators. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. They had this technology.
Huge Home Depot relationship, right?
Yeah. So so naturally you're like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. This is a great partnership. Yeah. And so as we're doing that, we're starting to get tens of thousands of these. We're pulling them off their burnt. And these are the people's systems who aren't performing, and we're scratching our heads. Now, I'm going to rewind because we had to connect the dots.
Okay.
In April 2021, we had a system that we removed that had a melting piece. We called Generac about it. They're like, oh, that's a fluke. We've never heard anything like it. They were done. In August 2021, a fire occurred in a Pink Energy customer in Kentucky. The cause of the fire was believed the overheating of the Snap RS. August 12th, 2021, still August of last year, a conference call between Pink Energy and Generac was held to discuss the potential thermal events associated with this part. Generac disclosed to Pink Energy for the first time that it was now investigating bulging and separation issues and was developing a new model and a fix of the Snap RS called the 801A. August 18th, okay, so we didn't know it was a major issue yet. We've seen a few of these and starting to pick up. So 6 days later, a fire takes place at a Pink Energy's customer home in South Carolina. This is the second fire now in the same month. The cause is believed to be melting and exploding Snap RS. We lose it. We get on the phone with Generac, and the next day, Generac informs us that it developed a firmware update which had the ability to remotely identify the defective Snap RS units that were in danger of overheating, which presented the potential thermal event. Pink Energy was assured that the firmware update applied by Generac remedied the issue of the overactive Snap RS turning on and off repeatedly and would keep the unit signal constant in the on position until there was a forced rapid shutdown. Generac said firmware updates began to be sent to customers' homes on that date, and more occurring over the next couple of days. Jeff McAndrews of Generac, and all this is public information. It's in our media package and in our lawsuit. Generac's director of sales for its East region said to Pink Energy in an email, all good though, so glad this was resolved so quickly. The reason that's important is we then got on calls with the executive team and said, should we be worried? Our legal team was like, guys, what the hell is going on to their legal team? Yeah. They said, we've got it fixed. We have a firmware that is preventing any of this to happen. All is good. We can put stuff in.
Let me just ask you a personal question, right? You hear there's a fire, right? Like, how does that make you feel? And like, how does that impact your discussions and what you're doing when you're talking to Generac?
Listen, it's a problem. There were we installed, I don't know, at that time, it was August of 2021. I'm throwing a dart at it. Maybe we're sitting at 25 or 27,000 customers total, maybe. Okay. Maybe almost 30. Because I think we did like 6,000 or 7,000 maybe about 8,000 or 9,000 in 2021.
Just put some perspective around.
Well, here's what it is. Before 2020, before 2020, we had Solar Edge.
Okay.
In 2020, we switched to Generac. Okay. Yeah. And we started seeing these issues, but we didn't have any fires. I mean, of course, a fire may happen. We haven't, not that I can remember of any, but a fire may happen and be blamed in many different ways. Nobody was hurt. Nothing happened. But the fire happened and it was really odd. Our legal team called them and they're like, here's money to give them for their fire. And like, no waiver. Our legal team was like, there's a problem here. Like that was the conversation. They're like, there's something fishy here. That was in the August. When they came out and they said they had their firmware, their executive team assured us, that made me feel better because in that month, when that happened, we saw 2 fires. I said, pull the plug. We're probably not going to offer their shit. They came out and said, we have firmware to fix this. We were on multiple calls with them. Yes, this is all fixed, no problems. We quit seeing so many things burnt.
Yeah.
We didn't see them burnt. But what had happened? We weren't getting calls of, we weren't seeing these burnt. We're just, continuing to install last year. Is we find out later, we don't find out till April, May of this year, that when they sent that firmware, so you're sitting with your 24 panels, they're at a 41% fail rate as of June of this year. I don't know where they're at now. I would think probably 80%, but they were at a 41% fail rate. Think of that. 41% of these, which goes on every panel, is failing.
Right.
Okay.
So if you've got your average system is 20 plus panels.
Yeah. You've got half.
8 or 10 of these.
Yes. Now, what I don't want to scare people or scare you is thinking solar's bad and 41% are able to catch fire. No, the firmware did stop the fires. Yeah. That is correct. The firmware prevented, we didn't see any more fires. That's correct. To my knowledge, we haven't seen any more fires.
Okay. So that's a step in the right direction.
That's why we're like, okay, there's no more fires. We're installing this stuff. We're thinking things it's fixed. There's no more issues. We're not seeing issues. The problem is what we found out in April, May of this year is if you have the 24 panels, each array is 8 panels. So you have 3 arrays. You have 8 here, 8 here, 8 here, max. If one of these fails on any array, that firmware shuts the entire array off. So 1 failing means 8 panels are down. 2 failing on 1 on each array means 16 of your 24 panels are down. You don't get an alert. Nobody calls you. They don't send you a letter. They don't send you smoke signals. No pun intended. Nope. What they do is they literally shut your shit off. And here I'm
trying to do the math, right? So you got 8 panels. You have a 4 out of 10 failure rate on that component. So if you got 8 panels, probably one of those snap RS is going to fail on each array.
In most cases. Well, let's say you have 24 panels total. So you have 3 arrays. Let's say 16 are failing, but none are failing in the 3rd array. It's all in the first 2 arrays. This is an example. Well, if you only have 1 in any array, just 1, that whole array is shut down.
Right.
So basically you could have 2 failing snaps, 1 and 2, you could have 3 failing snaps and have 0% production because it's in 3 different arrays. You could have 3 and so my whole point is it's a third of your system is shut down if you have 24 panels, if they find 1, 2/3 if they find 2 in another array. So they would get, my understanding, and I'm not a data scientist, my understanding is they would get a signal and they would send the firmware if it got hot and they would shut that array off. They didn't tell the consumer. They didn't tell us. Here's the problem. The consumer's paying a monthly fee thinking they're producing XYZ power. Yeah. And they're not. They're not catching on fire, but they're not producing the power that was intended.
Yeah.
So when we were getting all these calls and go back to that March thing and we investigate, we go, holy snap. We just, again, no pun intended with the snap. We just figured out this is what's going on. We got on a call with them in of May of 2021 and started to unravel that, that's what happened. And we lost it. We're like, are you serious? They're like, well, we said, okay, so we have to replace all of these, right? These are 41% failing. Like, do you have a different part? We have an 801A that, but the firmware shuts down the fires, but we still got to go replace them because their system's not working. So they're not at risk to burn down, but their system's not working. So we're asking in May and June of this year, what about those that don't have internet? What'd you do about them? We have like 1,000 customers don't have internet.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're getting to them fast with subcontractors. Are you fucking serious? We lose it. Isaac, we lose it. We're yelling at them. You need to send a letter. You need to do something. We're screaming. We're getting legal involved. I'm telling my team, you guys need to start freaking building a case. These guys are going to play like, what's going on? They're like, guys. So in June, their CEO, during all this heated discussion, their CEO, Aaron Jagfeld, sends an email and says, hey, I'm glad to announce our new 802. So you had the 801 and you had the 801A. Neither worked. Firmware stopped the fires. They still shut down and you weren't producing power. They said the new 802 is the permanent fix. I'm glad that we got out of our temporary fix with the firmware and the 801A. We lost it because we took both emails and we set them side by side. The email in in August of 2021 said, this is a permanent fix. All is good. The email in June 2022, that was never the permanent fix. Here's the permanent fix. That was a temporary solution.
Yeah.
They lied. We lost it in June. And so we're having heated calls with them. And we're saying, give us all the 802s you have, because we're 75-80% of all their solar production. That was us. We were their biggest. That's what they're getting sued today, right now, in a class action securities fraud case against Generac and Aaron Jagfeld for not informing them multiple things. One, the snap failure that they've known for over a year. And two, not being upfront with them about their channel partners. We're their largest channel partner. They told their investors nobody was higher than 6 or 8 or 10%. We were clearly like 75 or 80% of their stuff. We knew that. They've discussed that with us. We were buying, we're one of the biggest players out there. The rest were a couple small mom pops. So during all this time, we also get an email from other installers saying they're having issues with their consumers. Have we seen anything? So we knew there was a serious problem. This wasn't a Pink Energy problem. This was definitely a Generac problem. They started to take blame. We had phone calls with them. They finally sent out a letter to consumers. They hired a third-party company to help clean this up. We started to convert from 80 install teams down to 25, and from 15 service teams up to 80. And we were pounding these out. Over 100,000 of these we were replacing, putting in the new 802s thinking it would work. And this is in June, July, August. We're still on this letter of intent for the close. We're up front with XL Fleet. Here's what's going on. We're being transparent with them. And then we're investigating all this bad media out there, all these BBB
Dude,
issues.
how's your stress level at this during this time?
Well, I was, it's like, I'm in my early 40s. How old are you, Isaac?
I'm 43. Yeah.
Okay.
We're
the
both
same
born
age.
in 1979.
Yeah. Okay. Great year.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, my triglycerides I just went to the doctor today. It's funny we talk about this, to go get all my blood work. Like, you haven't had a physical in 3 years. I was like, all right, take care of it now.
Yeah.
So you go in there and you think, okay, maybe I got high triglycerides. Maybe I got this. Maybe I got that. Like, you're a normal business functioning. You got your little issues here and there that you're able to manage, that you're able to handle in a timely manner, in a profession to grow and to keep customers satisfied.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're told you have stage 4 cancer. You have 2 weeks to live. Like, that's the kind of feeling we had. Like, you're telling me we have 41% of these failing on almost 20,000 customers. You're telling me our calls with Generac, you're telling me we have to replace all of these eventually? Well, they're only at 41% failure. I'm like, no. I said, if I had a airbag that was 1% failure, I'd have done a national recall. Why the F didn't you guys do a national recall? These were our conversations. Well, their words, not mine. And I'm okay sharing this with the world. It's in the lawsuit. And I tell everybody, I sing the truth song. Their words, not mine. We should have done more due diligence when we bought Pica. This is our fault, our problem. We will make it all right. They never took blame. We saw the reviews go from very little bad reviews to thousands. We saw no investigations from AGs to go to 9 states investigating us. We saw our BBB rating being an A+ to shutting us down. We eventually got it back after we shared with them and showed them all our commitment, what we're doing. They cited in the BBB thing, one of the reasons we're getting our rating back is because we chose not to use Generac anymore, because they were having other companies complain about Generac and things like that. So fast forward, all this is going on in July, and we're telling Generac, look, we'll continue to fix this, and we'll be that partner that's just getting stepped on our brand. Now, XL Fleet backed out and said, dude, this is too hairy. Like, when this gets solved, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They backed off, so we lost the deal. We had another private bank come in and offer $440 million. So now you can see that over those 3 months, April, May, June, we lost about 675,000 or 675 million in valuation.
Wow.
So we're at 440 million in June. Another company was going to come in and they started their due diligence, but it just became like, we got to figure this out. So that came to a halt. We started talking to these newscasters, give us these customers that are complaining to you and you're just throwing stories out there and painting me to be this evil villain with the Lambo and the blonde hair. And it's like, people forget I built 3 companies, have a book, have a podcast, bought multiple houses over my tent. Like, I've done okay. They don't realize I've had the same salary since 2018 minus the cost of living, 2 or 3% a year increase. That, we haven't pulled out any kind of distributions besides tax distributions that were, sufficient since 2019.
Yeah.
And so, I made the same 1 million or so salary in 2018 as I did in 2020. In 2018, the company was worth 55 million. In 2022, I'm sorry, not 2020, 2018 companies were 55 million. I was making same salary I was making in 2022, but the company was worth $1 billion.
Yeah.
I could have made 20 times more. I didn't. Everything
you were investing into your brand, right?
I was investing in the company.
You guys are rolling that money back into the company.
But these newscasters, not all of them, but dude, I can tell you, I am surprised some of these people have jobs because they can't dot the I's, cross the T's, or add 3 + 3. That's a fact. Because you would give them information and they're like, it doesn't make sense. They don't have batteries. Listen, numbnuts. They didn't have to have batteries. It's on every system. Like, I go through everything here talking to the media. And that was the other thing. We were directed by our PR team and legal team to stand down when all this came out. Yeah. And just don't speak for 2 months. One of the biggest mistakes we ever made, because then the media painted their own picture. The consumers had their own picture. So by the time I came out, started speaking about this, they were like, oh, he's diverting. And it's like, guys, that's not the case. I fired my PR team and told my legal team, look, I'm going to talk. This is ridiculous. I'm going to have a voice. Generac needs to be accountable for this mess. They made our biggest issue. Like, we have our own problems, but a vast majority of the issues came from failing parts. And I'm not talking about 1,000 customers. I'm talking almost 20,000 customer systems not performing the way they need to, all because of the firmware in this part. And we have to replace each one of those. That was the issue. So customers are paying a monthly fee for months and the system's not working. Long story short, Generac agrees to pay us for the services. We invoice them, I don't know, north of $50 million. It's in the bankruptcy thing, so it's public information. And they pay a little bit, like $4 million, and then they strong arm us and we're like, dude, you're going to have to pay more. Like, we're struggling here. We're putting all our resources to fix your problem. We're not your bank. Pay us. They got very arrogant, made comments like it's David versus Goliath. Do what you got to do. And I filed a suit.
Yeah. And
so we sued him in the state of Virginia in federal court. And at the time, it was valued at about.
What else could you do, really, though? I mean, you know what I mean? It's.
Our hands were tied. And look, at that time, they had their new product out. And so we sued them and we agreed in principle with them. We still believe them. I hate that we believe them so many times. It's crazy that a public company and a CEO of a public company could lie and be this way this much and not be held accountable. It's crazy to me, but it did. It happened. We're living proof. And when we talked to them, we filed the suit. The legal teams agreed that we would continue to service this because they didn't have the resources to service this many, and they would pay us for that. Well, they didn't. So then in August, after we filed the lawsuit, we quit servicing customers like 2 or 3 weeks later because they again didn't pay us. And so then we had to tell these customers, you're a customer, like, sorry, you're going to have to call Generac, and you're upset. And we were giving customers refunds. Like, Izach, if your system was down 4 months because of this issue, we were writing you a check for those 4 months rebate. Generac told us they'd make that right and take care of that. Like we told them, we're paying these customers their monthly loan payments when we need to. You need to reimburse us for that. Oh, we'll take care of it. It's our fault. Yeah. Nothing. So what did we do? We changed. And then here's what's crazy. We started to gain momentum. July was better than June. August was better than July, and September was on pace to be better than August. So sales started to pick up. The BBB gave us our rating back. I thought, like, we're going to fight out of this. Generac's going to be held accountable. They're eventually going to have to fix every one of those customers. This lawsuit can help get all those customers right. And we're going to get out of this and continue to grow. But with the layoffs, with the lack of all the sales in April and May and June that bid us for installs in August and September, and July, August, and September.
Plus you're fronting all this cost for the repair teams
that we never got from them, over $80 million plus that we never got from them. So all of a sudden our resources shrank, our debt grew, and then we were looking at the barrel of, and then the finance companies froze what they were paying us. They were like, guys, like, you have all this backlog of sales, but nothing's installing. You've been too busy fixing these service things. So they weren't paying us. They were doing clawbacks. They were holding the financing. It was an issue to where we dried up and we had to close September 21st. And when we closed, Kevin and me and Steve had to put in over $4 million between us to cover the last payroll and expenses personally. And we haven't even been on payroll since April. People go, why'd you go off payroll in April? Because just like we did in COVID, anytime we're laying people off, I don't feel good getting a paycheck. And we laid people off in May, and we laid people off in June, and then we closed in September. So in April, we agreed as executives, we're going to go off payroll until we're hiring again. Yeah. And it was a tough pill to swallow. But that's what leaders do. Leaders give back to their company. Leaders don't, leaders invest everything they have. And that's what we did. And my wife said it best to me the other day. It hurts my feelings. But she's right. She said, it's sad, Jayson, because you thought till the last hour you were going to win. And we weren't smart. We didn't go get mortgages on our house. We didn't go get credit cards. We didn't do all that. Everything was in the business. She said, you believed in everything was going to happen. Like you believed no matter what, you were going to win. And that's what true leaders do, but you lost. And I didn't prepare. I didn't look at what else you could do. So personally, I stuck everything in to the business. And so it's like losing a child. You have to grieve. And I'm not the, grieving type.
Yeah.
Okay, next we got to go. And so I'm invested in doing other things, but I still call for a national recall every day because it's right for the customer. Now that we filed, we closed the doors, which was so hard. Izach, we had about 40 directors on the call and everybody was bawling. And people they're bawling. We laid off all these people and these people are crying and they're so upset that this happened. They're so mad at Generac. And I'm like, look, you don't need to be a voice. You just need to, what's right. And you just need to know that I appreciate each and one of you. But it was so emotional to let go of, 2,200 employees in a matter of 6 months after growing year after year after year, doubling. And, and then personally, they were crying, thank you for paying the payroll because we didn't have to. We're talking to attorneys and they're like, look, business doesn't have it. And we're like, that's not right. We're going to put money in here and make sure that these people are paid. Because I believe when you do good things happen. And, it's starting to turn, meaning people are starting to see and understand the Generac issues. There's 2 consumer class action lawsuits against them. One in Florida. We're not even in Florida. We don't even have any customers in Florida, but yet Florida has enough customers that have this Generac Snap RS issue that they filed a class action lawsuit. Then there's one in Wisconsin in their home state that has some of our customers in there. There's one coming out of California, and then you got the securities fraud class against them. So it's starting to open eyes of maybe the pink guys and the guy with the blonde hair out there was telling the truth. And, I've learned a lot of lessons in this. It's, you got to risk everything and put it in the business, but you got to be smart. I put everything in and didn't prepare myself for picking up the pieces I'm picking up. Not even on a personal level, on a business level. We did everything. There were times we could have taken distributions. We didn't. We left everything in the business. I won't ever do that again. It's just not worth it. Not when we can't control something. And I say this, and I'll say it till I die. If Generac would have done a national recall, we would probably be sitting with 3,000 employees and growing. Wouldn't have laid people off. They would have done what's right. Customers would have understood. They wouldn't have been stuck in the middle. I feel bad for these customers who are stuck in the middle. And not all of them are Generac's problems. A huge percentage of them are. The larger, 90% or so. But the ones that aren't, I feel bad for them, where we have a leaky roof or we broke this or we did that. We didn't get all the resources right up. We couldn't fix them. It's not right. Yeah. The good news is they can put a claim in the bankruptcy, and hopefully this trustee doesn't settle early with Generac where Generac gets off cheap. Now it's $1 billion lawsuit, full enterprise value. It's at a stay with the bankruptcy. If the bankruptcy trustee can get, several $100 million, these customers can be made whole. And that's a great thing.
So
that's a lot to unfold. Yeah. And it's the first time I'm on public really telling the whole story. So kudos to you on that. But there's pieces everywhere, but the real story is right here.
Yeah. So, we talk on this show mostly about mergers and acquisitions and things to get ready for selling. I think, this to me, and I've known you for a long time and I've been following this story. But this was an example of a kind of an existential risk that you can't prepare for. Right. I mean, I think I have a banking underwriting background, and I was thinking about, no bank could have seen this coming. No, I think it'd be very hard as a executive to see this coming. You're not anticipating a catastrophic failure in a component.
And when you do, You would think there's a recall, like there's responsibility taken there.
Especially with a big publicly traded company as your partner. So, but my question is, yeah, what are the lessons learned for you? You mentioned a couple with kind of, preparing yourself. What are the lessons learned, and then how do you take this, Jayson, and move forward and leverage these learnings, right? You went through this whole SPAC process, reverse merger, I gotta imagine ton of learning right there.
Oh my
right?
gosh. So truth be told, right? I didn't even know what EBITDA was before 2017. Okay.
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah.
So, and I'm 2 or 3 years in the business, right? I've learned so much. You can't put a price on what I've learned. I've learned about EBITDA. I've learned to scale a business to $1 billion, in 700 million in revenue. I've learned to be a leader for over 2,000 employees. I've learned to manage an executive team where they've got MBAs from Harvard and everywhere else, certain folks. I've learned to inspire, encourage, and motivate people. I've learned how to overcome so much adversity, whether it be COVID, whether it be, bad markets, whether it be weather, and until you meet your match, right? And, the ability, what I've learned is I've learned how to raise capital. I mean, I did 200 pitches.
Yeah.
In a few years. I was doing 3 or 4 a day. I was like lighting them up for an hour. Like I had it like this. And I'm just, I know our business. I love our business. I'm going through it. And they're all just like, oh my gosh. And the rest of the team just sit there and maybe answer a question or two. Like I'd put on a show. And I got so good at it and I loved it. I was like, man, like I love talking about our business and our customers and the future and getting people excited. And I was like, all the relationships I built over that and, how to raise. So all these things that I learned in private equity and public companies and going to be public and how you got to, certain things got to happen before you do the transaction. And I'm going to take that knowledge. And if I had half of this knowledge when I first opened, it'd have been $1 billion company in 3 years, not 8. So I'm excited about the new ventures because I'm like, I can do this and build something again in 2 or 3 years and be where I was at.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to make certain mistakes. I'm going to have, maybe some different leadership avenues, maybe not codepend on a equipment manufacturer so much. We diversified our portfolio with finance companies, but we didn't with the equipment manufacturer. We got popped. We did with panels. We had 2, but we didn't with everything else, and we got popped. But I love solar. And I want to say solar is still a great thing. I think this was a black eye for solar, and that's unfortunate. And I know I took the blunt of that. My family's getting abused on this. I'm getting abused on this because I had nice stuff, because I was on commercials, because I drove nice cars, and I have a podcast and a book. And I know I seem like an arrogant prick. And in some cases, you have to be to run a business and be tough. But I am very kind, and I am very honest, and I am very integrity driven. And I always try to do the right thing. And I love people, and I love to see people succeed. And I don't ever wish hate on anybody. I don't like the Generac folks very much, but I don't wish hate on anybody.
Yeah, right.
And, with that said, the perception of a photo shoot of me wearing a jacket for Hour magazine where they wanted best dressed on my Lambo, they painted me for the best dressed to look that way. I hated the picture. That's kind of been the cover of, oh, look at this guy, Wolf of Wall Street. And I'm nothing like that. Those that know me, those that work for me, close to me, not employees, because I do run an 80-20. People are like, man, I work there. And that's why, well, the guy probably wasn't doing his job. I'm a big believer of 80-20, 80%, 20% of your people do 80% of the work. The next 60% do the other 20% of work. Your bottom 20, you need to churn and burn all the time. I'm always going to be a believer in that. That's how I built my companies. That's not a sales thing. That's in everything, whether they're in service, whether they're in install, whether in accounting. You want to put a line there and you want everyone to aspire to be better. And when they don't, they're pointing fingers and they're wasting time. You move on from those bottom 2. Well, those are a lot of the people out there in the world today hating and saying mean stuff because they didn't know me and they probably got fired. But for those that stayed till we couldn't keep the doors open anymore, they know what we were about. They know our intentions were to do right by these customers and to allow these customers to really own their power and really, make an impact in this world. And it didn't work out. And so, I would say that in learning these things, I don't want to run $1 billion business again. I'd rather run 4 or 5 $200 million companies, because when you stick all your chips in one giant monster, which is what I believed you were supposed to do. If it dies, you got nothing. And so I don't want to do that again. And I would encourage people out there, if you've got something, I'm not saying waste your energy because I don't believe in playing bees either, but diversify, because there are things out of your control. And, usually I don't ever lose. And on this, I lost for now, right? The truth is coming out. Justice is starting to come out. I don't know if I'll ever see $1 in this. I know we've given several $1 million to the company and we lost several $100 million in valuation stock if we would have went public. It kind of bothers you. You're like, wow, because we were given $100 million of this stock to our employees. When we went public, $100 million was assigned to our employees. So that all went away because of, bad, faulty equipment, lies, and they hid stuff. Now, do I think they knew it was this big last year? No, I think they knew it was a problem. I think they thought they can contain it. I thought that they lied and hid from stuff. And as it got bigger, they really ran. And I think that that's what happened. And it's sad because homes were affected where they did catch on fire, a handful, and people bought systems that didn't work. And that's not right either. And so I hate that it's painted as it's us. Not saying we're perfect, but damn, we were close. 7+ years, an A+ with the BBB in an industry where nobody has an A+ with the BBB in solar, and we did for 7+ years. People aren't going to take that away from us. And I would advise people the best education is when you fail forward, and you try to take that failure and you try to have something that you learn from it. And you try to apply that. And right now, I want to give wisdom to people. I want to consult with people. I'm doing the new podcast. I'm investing in a couple companies here and there that hopefully can do some stuff. I'm going to stay out of solar for a little bit, even though I love it. Maybe I'll stay out for long. I don't know. I do love it, but I think it's got a black eye, and I think it's got some bumps it's got to get through with the financing fees getting so high and stuff like that. It's tough to do. What I really am into, and I wish I could have access to find somebody to do it, is the concrete 3D homes. I would love to do affordable housing in North Carolina. If anybody with a concrete 3D machine wants to partner up, like
printed homes. Yeah.
They're doing it in I think California, and they're doing it in other countries. And it's like
they're doing it in other countries for sure. Yeah.
You build like a $400,000 house for like $80,000.
Yeah.
It's affordable housing all day. Huge home. Like, it's great. I like that. I'm into that. I'm looking at that. But I haven't slowed down. I haven't grieved. I've been go, go, go. That's how I'm built.
One of the things that I was always fascinated with is the fact that you really built Power Home and Pink Energy on digital marketing. Your company was a digital marketing kind of a phenomenon. I mean, you guys were early. I don't know if you're pioneers, but you were definitely early movers in Facebook marketing. You were all over social media. You were using testimonials. You were using influencers. So just tell us a little bit about like how big that got and how much you scaled that marketing, because I think that's really directly applicable for a lot of our listeners.
Absolutely. So I started from the door knocking business and believed in building door knocking teams. I think door knocking's dead now. I know some people still do it. I think it's a wasted cause. I think there's a better way to do it than bother people while they're cooking dinner. The world has changed. People want information fast. They want it now. The world is different than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. People want to access information now. You're knocking on a door, they're not going to get that. You're bothering them. That's my belief. Now, we did telemarketing back in the day, and that's a nightmare. Who wants to call people cold? Like, that doesn't work. We did that in home security business. That's dead, and you should never do that. That's also, nobody's going to answer their phone. So when we opened up POWERHOME Solar, I said, look, I want to do something different. I don't want to have to deal with door knockers where I'm handcuffed and held hostage to those guys going out knocking a door. And I don't want to deal with telemarketers because you get sued, for the do not call list every time you turn around because everybody's on the DNC and this person says, oh no, I'm only calling clean, it becomes a shit show. So I said, I want to build this on digital marketing only, and I had to learn it. So I was doing live. I mean, my Facebook's like, Jayson Waller here, POWERHOME Solar, blah. And I remember one of the girls in the office like, man, you're a lot. And I'm like, yeah, it's all right. And it had like 13 views. And then I do it again and it had like 14 views. I do it again, I had like 40 views. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I just religiously was just doing it every day. And I was online figuring out how to market in Facebook. All right, I'm going to put this ad in. It says do this, figure this out. Okay, what kind of demographic I'm looking at? Okay, let's do this. Own your home, 40 grand plus a year. Like you're clicking different things. Okay. Let me test it. Ooh, I don't like that. Let me do this. Okay. And I figured it out. And then buying leads and buying leads from like the clean energies and the solar reviews back in the day when we first opened. And then I was like, I want to make my own. Like these guys are selling them to 8 other people. Like this is crazy. So I started to do it myself. And that's really what we came up with is I would do the digital marketing and I would, have a team help qualify and call and say, hey, Izach, you filled out a form. We started this very small. And then we give those appointments to our salespeople. So we offer gold. So if we hired a salesperson or what we called a field energy consultant, we didn't need someone who was sales savvy. We actually didn't want salespeople. We wanted someone that could educate a consumer about solar because this consumer already raised their hand online and said, yes, I want to know more about solar. So they're already interested because we spent the money marketing and we're sending people out. So we started to grow that to where at our peak, we were spending around $10 million a month on digital marketing and advertising.
Yeah. That blows me away. Cause, and I think that's so,
but you got to build your brand. You got to get out there on all platforms. You got to share, you have to do it so much that your family and friends are annoyed. They're like, Izach, I'm sick of seeing you all the time. You got to be like, well, then I'm doing my job, because if you just get that one person to see you that calls in, you're winning. That's how you do it. You try to gain one more every day and it just starts to take off. It's the same thing with a podcast. It's the same. You have to put content out there if you want people to watch it. You have to. Either you want to do it or you don't. And when any business that I'm in is going to have a lot of digital marketing, because I love digital marketing. I love when you can build your brand, you can educate a consumer, you can give them access to be able to look at your products and let them be educated to make a decision. Because people in today's world want information now. They don't want to be sold. They want to be empowered. And that's what digital marketing allows them to do.
Yeah. I remember trying to explain your ad spend at one point to some of the bankers that had never seen anything like that. And
we were a top 50 Facebook spender. Like Facebook treated us like kings. We were in the top 50 worldwide, what we were spending every month on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And what was interesting is you were able to scale to that level profitably, right? And so what you do on Facebook is, like you said, you're A/B testing, you're testing these different strategies, and when you had a creative that was giving you good returns, scale it, invest in it, pay
and the ponds that you're fishing in, what the demographics are, what hits better. I remember doing it early. I'd be hitting people that don't like utility companies and people that like to mow their lawns, or like you pick different narratives of folks and it hits them, and it's like, oh, that works, that doesn't. So you have to do the testing. And when you scale, when you're building that and people are filling out forms, you've always got to evolve. The creative is so important to be refreshed, but it's also the message, and you got to be current. You can't have the same offer all the time. Authority pages are important. Authority page isn't a sales retail page. It's an educational piece. When you allow people to read about something and then they click to learn more, that's way more powerful than, hey, buy here now. Like, people don't want to be had. People don't want to be sold. Want to be empowered. And when we continue to grow that, it is hard, but instead of paying a door knocker to go knock a door, you pay a lot less commission. They run an appointment, so you have gold, right? You're feeding them. They don't have to hunt. They get to farm. They like that. Mm-hmm. And then you're spending that money you would have paid them on the digital marketing, where you control when it comes in. You can control turning the lever up, turning the lever down.
And you have great analytics on what your spend and return is.
Correct.
Throughout that entire cycle.
Got to be able to manage it though. You got to know, hey, I spent this. This is what's converting. This is what isn't. And in any business, you could do that. Like I do it in the podcast. Like, I read ads that help pay for the podcast now, but I also am buying ads, right? Where if I'm investing in an ad, are we getting more subscribers or are we not? And is it worth it?
Yeah, I heard I think I was listening to one of your podcasts and heard the ad for Omaha Steaks, and I was like, man, that's great. How do we get,
They sent me free steaks, by the way.
Yeah, I bet they did. Yeah.
And Manscaped sent me some stuff. And look, it's cool. Yeah. My son's like, Dad, you're like a sellout. Like you're doing ads. I said, they do ads on ESPN. Like, I don't want to pay for the podcast. I want it to pay for itself and be able to give a message out there and build my brand. I don't want to have to pay for it.
Yeah,
and if it's
I believe Joe Rogan's getting paid for Alpha Brain,
right. So, it's like, I like it. Like some of the ads, that they send, I'm laughing. Like, I'm like, this is great. The Manscaped one I had the most fun with for sure. But, but it was like, it's fun and, it's entertaining and it helps the cause, meaning like, I don't have to come out of pocket, to build the show up because it costs money. This, it costs money to have a producer, it costs money to cut things. It costs money to, do the audio. I mean, everything costs money. And, as the show has grown, with the BAM podcast, we're actually up 112% in December than we were in November.
Wow. So tell us about BAM, Business and Money podcast.
So the BAM podcast, I actually have a BAM tattoo right there. I think maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. Okay, right there. Okay,
BAM.
So BAM.
That's been your motto, man. I mean, you've been BAM for a long time.
I've been BAM for a while. So my son came up with the word many years ago, and was like, Dad, you don't need to say boom, you need to say BAM. And so I was like, I need to come up with an acronym for our solar company that BAM is building a movement, one panel, one customer, one employee at a time. And then the podcast, True Underdog, the previous podcast, was building a moment. BAM. Like we're the moment we're building, and it's important, right? Every show, every episode, every it's sentence said is important. It's a dime. And then with this, it was like, I want to do something. I love the word BAM. It's like part of my mantra. So I was like, body and mind, let's go. So it was going to be like BAM, the Body and Mind podcast. And then it was like, well, I don't know, like I've only done yoga twice. I've done Pilates like 8 times. I'm not really the expert on that. Yeah. I like it. I still care about my body and mind, especially my mind. Business and money. Well, I know a little something about business, and I know something about making money and losing money and making my, like, okay, I like it. So I talked to the team and said, let's go with the BAM podcast, the Business and Money podcast. And it started as like an F cancel culture podcast. Like I've got some of the swag that was like, and I put some stuff out there, but it seemed a little too harsh. Like I got feedback. You got to be open to feedback too. Like when you're building a brand, like you may have something, always be yourself. Don't not be you. That's rule 1, right? Because people aren't going to change who I am. But somebody was like, you got to be like F cancel culture and this. And I'm like, all right. And I was doing it and I felt a little too angry. Like I can naturally be somewhat angry, but I felt too angry. And I was like, it's not really me. So in one of the episodes, Clinton Sparks actually coached me before then, was like, dude, like, you're F this, F that, man, you're kid. And I'm like, yeah, he's probably right. It's a little too angry. So I'm okay with like, anytime I can get constructive criticism or knowledge from someone, like talking to someone, you always learn. I wanted to peel back. I'm in my element. Yeah. So I'm still like, fuck.
That's growth, though, right? I mean, that's growth. That's growth. You figuring out how to present and publicize who you are in a way that feels authentic, and that sometimes that takes some iterations.
It does, because you get people around you that have their own version of what it should look like, and you're like, God, that sounds dope. Let's do that. Ooh, that's not really me. That doesn't feel real. I don't like it. So it was a little too harsh for me. I think there's a middle, right? I think there's a David Goggins and Andy Frisella and Ed Milet and E.T. And I want to be in between E.T. and Andy Frisella. Not as soft as Ed Milet. I like him. Yeah. Not as hard as David Goggins, but kind of in between. And I think that's more my element. I feel natural there. I throw the F-bomb when it's appropriate. I don't need to F everything. And it works. But then I get to talk, I bring people on and we get to talk about, real business, and I get to talk about real things in life and how to better things. And I think, the first few episodes has really been more personalized than business. But I got a lot of business ones planned ahead. But just the base is back, meaning like, the listeners are back, the subscribers are back. It's starting to grow again, because I haven't done new episodes in a long time. So, I want to, you got to get back to swimming. All right. I'm good. And, podcasts sometimes is work. You're like, dude, I got to go in there for an hour. And if you don't talk to someone you like, it sucks. So I'm very strict. I'm like, guys, like, who the is this coming on my show? Like, why? Well, who is that? And then when they tell me, and I'm like, oh shit, that's great. Or, oh, dude. But I'll be honest, the last 7 or 8 months with everything going on with Pink / Power Home, I didn't have the energy, dude. I did a couple shows that were some high end celebrity guys that were booked that I really didn't have a choice to do, but you could see my energy in there. Like my mind is like, we got to fix this. Right. And so I didn't do it justice. And so I feel refreshed. I feel like, now my job, my gig is this podcast. I do some investments, but the podcast is my gig. And I've got time to do it and energy to do it. And I want to do it. It wasn't like I'm so swamped in trying to save this company and save these employees, save these customers that, that's going to pull an hour of my time on a Thursday I ain't got time to do.
Does that feel like a relief at this point? Or have you gotten to the point where you feel like relieved to be able to turn your focus and your energy onto something to build something new?
Yes and no. It's like a lingering scar, right?
Yeah.
Like, because when we closed, it was like, what happens? I've never been in this position before, never been in business, bankruptcy, none of this. So we closed, and then it was like, okay, well, we don't have to file bankruptcy. Well, then lawsuits start coming. It's like, well, so then the bankruptcy attorney's like, you probably need to file bankruptcy. So we're like, okay, so we filed bankruptcy. Well, then that's a process. I got to go to these 341 meetings. Like, well, I'm trying to grow a business, do a podcast. I got to go do this too. So you have to go through these things. So yes, the relief is there where 8 hours a day, I'm not grinding and overcoming and trying to figure out, this Generac issue. Are they going to pay us? Are we going to be able to keep the employees today? Like, I don't have to go through that. Right. And that was exhausting, or break people's hearts. We already had all that pain of everyone, laying everyone off and, all of that. So it says, that relief is there, but it's still lingering. Like yesterday, I had to go to court, but yesterday was a great day because the trustee controlled it very well. There were people that were inappropriately shut down, and I got to tell the timeline similar that I told you, where a lot of these consumers needed to hear that. And I started to hear the tide turn a little bit where they understand they got to go after Generac for some things. And so I think that's important. And I think that, and look, I'm an open book, and, contrary to what some of the legal team says, and I don't have a PR team anymore, but, I share media kits. I share all this stuff with all these reporters, cause they want to write their own story. And the other thing I learned is you need to get in front of things and you need to write your own narrative, meaning you need to tell your story immediately in any kind of issue or controversy and share it, and not be scared to share it, because we were kind of put in a box, just no big deal. And to get people to reverse their thoughts or what they're thinking is so much harder than just telling them up front what's going on. And I think that that's one of the biggest regrets is we fought with Generac for them to send a letter out, and they wouldn't allow us to send a letter out. They threatened to sue us because we were wanting to send a letter out. So just create a lot of issues. And then to the media, we had to be careful because we signed all these NDAs with Generac. We didn't want to get sued by them, and they were our pipe investor. I mean, it was manipulation at its finest.
Yeah.
And, I figured all that out now, and I'm like, nah, F that. I'm going to say what I want. I'm going out there. I'm stating the truth. Right. When you tell the story the way it is, there's nothing to change. Like, this is what happened, right, wrong, or indifferent. Here it is. And so I've been sharing that a lot, and I would advise any struggles you have, any issues you have in business or life, you got to get out in front of it, not hide from it. And you got to be able to talk about it. My opinion.
Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on to talk with us. Business and Money podcast for everyone who's listening. What's the best way to connect with you, Jayson?
Well, you can go in my Instagram at Jayson Waller BAM, or you can go to _the BAM podcast. Also, the BAM podcast is on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Castbox, Spotify. So you just go to the BAM podcast, Business and Money podcast, formerly True Underdog, again, BAM podcast.
Really appreciate you sharing, very openly, honestly, with, your successes and the challenges you've had. This is, I can imagine this is like a tough point in your personal history to come on and talk about this. But what I'm excited for is what you're going to do next. I know you've been a friend of mine for a long time, and I've got, nothing but confidence that you got greatness ahead of you. And I'm excited to see that come. I know this will be something that you kind of work through, and it'll be part of your history. So we'll make an appointment to
to when you get to that next peak, let's kind of revisit and tell that part of the story.
I plan on that peak being sooner than later, just so you know. So put that on the calendar. Thank you, Izach, for all your kindness. Appreciate you bringing me on the show, the Deal Closers podcast. Love it. Thank you so much. Go out and crush it. Bam!
Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode of the Deal Closers podcast, brought to you by websiteclosers.com. If you like the show, be sure to rate us, write a review, press the follow button, and share it with your network. And of course, if you're looking for help selling your e-commerce business, be sure to visit websiteclosers.com. This episode was edited and produced by Earfluence. I'm Izach Porter. Follow me on LinkedIn, and we'll see you next time on the Deal Closers podcast.